Welcome, everyone. This is Avoiding the Addiction Affliction, brought to you by Westwards Consulting, the Kenosha County Substance Use Disorder Coalition, and by a grant from the state of Wisconsin's Dose Reality Real Talks, reminding you that opioids are powerful drugs and that one pill can kill. I'm Mike McGowan. My guest today, Matt Christensen, grew up as the oldest child in a loving family. He'd already lost his sense of direction when in his early 20s, he also lost his mom. Poor choices and decisions followed, and then his family introduced him to the Other Side Academy. First as a student, now as a staff member. I'm going to let him tell the story. Welcome, Matt.
Yeah, hey, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
I appreciate it so much. We'll get to the Other Side Academy in just a few minutes, but I always like to start with the story, right? The staff blurb on the Other Side Academy's webpage, and listeners, you know that there's links to that at the end of the podcast. It says that you had talent when you were younger, but that you under-efforted. That's my word. I don't even know if it's a word.
No, it's a great word.
And underachieved. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me growing up, I had a lot of talent in a lot of things that I did. I grew up with a great family, and my parents were loving. I had three sisters and a brother that I grew up with, and I had every opportunity in the world. I played a lot of sports, learned instruments, and did those things. And I was pretty talented right off the bat with most of those things. But during that time, I developed some type of laziness to me. And if things started becoming hard, if it became something that talent alone, I can, then really I would just struggle beyond that. I would just give up. I would just be like, okay, that's enough. I was first chair trumpet growing up. And then when it got to the point to where people that excel, that really tried, started getting better than me, I would be like, okay, that was fun. Same thing with, I pole vaulted in high school. And I'd go to practice and just kind of do the minimal effort. And my classmates would go there. They'd come early, they'd leave late. And I was just, all right, well, have fun, guys. Have fun, guys. I'm still gonna beat you guys at this. And that only lasted for so long until finally they started becoming really up and coming. And I was finally like, okay, that's neat. All right, bye. And I just wouldn't want to put in that extra effort. It was, looking back, it's sad to think about. But at the same time, that's just kind of who I was at the time.
Were there coaches or teachers who tried to pull you aside and say, hey, look, you got a lot of talent, but you're getting passed by here?
No, I think I always did. I would always do well enough to where I don't think they felt
Mm.
like they needed to do that. It was just kind of, I think it was up to me at that point to just make the hard decision to just put in more effort on there instead of, like, I would do really well in high school, but if I wanted to get to that college range like pole vaulting, I knew I had to put in that extra effort. I just didn't really care to. I was lazy. I'm super lazy.
Did that laziness lead to bad decisions down the road then?
I think down the road, absolutely did. That's a trait that I carried on forever, would be, at least until I got to the Other Side Academy, was just trying to find that easy route. And like when it came to eventually getting help, like I wouldn't want to do things that seemed hard at the time.
What were some of the bad decisions you ended up making?
Ooh, let's see. So especially growing up, I developed this, when I wouldn't get my way, I would just realize, okay, I don't have to tell the truth when it comes to things. Instead of going and having the hard conversations with my parents about stuff, it's easier to just lie, to just be sneaky about stuff. So if I had a friend having a party in middle school, and initially I knew I'd asked about it a week or two ago, and they told me no, okay, the next time this happens, I'm just going to lie about it. And that became easier for me to do instead of, yeah, it just became easier. And I started developing just sneaky behaviors, manipulative behaviors very early on.
Did they catch you?
Not a lot. I was pretty, I feel like in comparison to a lot of my, at least especially the people that I work with here now, I was a pretty good kid. I
Mhm.
got okay grades. I was never super rude to my parents. I got my chores done. I was just really, I was just really sneaky. Yeah,
And
it's
that stuff, Matt, leads to immaturity. And then your mom tragically, she passed away when you were 20?
so. Yeah, I was in my early 20s. I'm 37 now, and she passed away in 2011.
Oh,
And yeah, it was all pretty quick. I was going to Utah State University that's up in northern Utah at the time when she got sick, and it was all pretty quick. It all happened probably within about a year or so of her getting diagnosed. And at the time, I was just getting into really starting to party a lot. I was living at a frat house up there when I learned about it, and my family used it as a time to grow together as a family. They lived about an hour south of me, and I had every decision. Like I could have came down a lot more often and been there to help them and be there for them while everybody was going through that. I spent a lot more time with my mom, but I spent that time just really just hiding and partying and numbing all of that during that time. And yeah, it was tough.
and then after she passed, how did you cope?
I got a lot more to partying, and I started dabbling in a bit more heavy drugs. In high school, it was during that OxyContin phase, and I dabbled in that a little bit during high school, but just stopped when I graduated high school. And so when stuff happened with my mom, I started getting back into harder stuff. Well, I used heroin for the first time back during that time period too. But one thing I always think about during all of that is just kind of the power of decisions, because I think a lot of people have a lot of trauma or events that happen in their life. But one thing that I've been able to look at in hindsight is the fact that the same event happened. The same event that happened to me happened to every single person in my family. My dad lost a spouse. My sisters and brother all lost a parent, and it's really the same situation that happened, same event. But like I said before, they chose to become closer as a family because of that. They didn't all become drug addicts because of that, and so it was my decision to go that route. So even though the event happened, especially now, I try to look at that and not think of that as something that forced me to go down the route that I did.
Maybe it's because of that your dad didn't want to also lose a son, your siblings lose a sibling. So then they
Yeah,
found the Other Side Academy. I assume the one in Utah. You have Utah and Denver,
Utah
right?
and Denver. Yep,
Yeah.
Utah and Denver.
So talk about the Other Side Academy. Let our listeners know what that's all about.
Yeah. So the great thing about the Other Side Academy, one thing that really sticks out about us is we're long. We're 2.5 years, which is great. I'd never done any type of program, so I'd never experienced a 30, 60, 90-day program. And I just jumped right into, you know, the
Two and a
one
half.
that's going to, yeah, the one that was going to work the most. So it's long. Also, it's free. That's one cool thing. We don't take any government funds here at the Academy. And how we go about doing that is we have a few different enterprises that we have. We have a moving company, which is it's one of the best in the state. So we have 2 thrift boutiques that have won best in Salt Lake City the last 6 years in a row. And we have a construction crew. I helped run our corporate development, running my team would reach out for in-kind donations because the students come in with just the clothes on their back. And so we're reaching out from hygiene, coffee, food, tools for our moving company and construction crew. And so that's how we generate the money to keep the doors open. And one of our main things is we focus on the behavior. So we have a lot of students that 2 ways that you can get into the academy is you can either write from jails or prison, or you can just walk in, which is what I did. I'm what we consider a walk-in. Just knew that my life was just not going anywhere and just wanted to make a change. But the example I wanted to bring up is we do have those people that come from jails and prisons, and they'll stay locked up and they're sober during that time period, and then they go back to society and just start inhibiting the same behavior,
Hmm.
and then it just turns into this cycle. And so at least our thought process is you were sober during that time period. How come when you get out and you're still sober, why are you still inhibiting those behaviors? So we focus on the behaviors at the academy. Anything from just small corrections, like if you don't push in your seats, we have people correcting you on that. If you're talking bad about a peer, we're correcting you on that. So you're not getting the habit of gossiping. Really, so many different behaviors we start focusing on early on at the academy. It's pretty cool.
That has got to be really difficult for people who come in leading a really unstructured life to all of a sudden be really structured.
Oh, absolutely. especially with these people that came from jails and prisons
Yeah.
that are used to living the either look the other way type of mindset. On They don't want to rat on anybody. They don't want to be snitches. Here we focus on one of our core beliefs is 200% accountability. So not only am I accountable for myself, but I'm also accountable for the other person too. And that's actually something I really struggled early on in my stay. If something didn't bother me, if it wasn't going to affect me, if I or at least I thought that, and it was just kind of okay, that's their issue to deal with. And I didn't really have a backbone. That's
Mind
something
your own
I
business, right?
felt, yeah, just mind my own business. And I learned pretty quickly, especially here at the academy, if you see somebody do something and people learn about it, they'll get some consequences. You'll probably get twice the amount of consequences because you because you just didn't do anything about it.
I assume, Matt, that there's a progression. You don't come in into the same part of the program that you leave with 2.5 years later.
Oh no, it's so with us being an academy, we're set up like we have a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, master student. And so you start out, it's all it's in-house. So everybody lives here. We have about 125 students at the moment.
Wow.
And when you get here and you're a freshman, you're really just working, doing house chores, cleaning bathrooms, doing laundry for the students that are at some of our enterprises. But the big thing is you're learning to actually work with your peers. Us as staff, we're looking at the freshmen, we're seeing what they struggle with. Is this person bossy? Is this person a laydown? What do they all struggle with? And so that's the first bit of your stay. After a few months, you get called off to one of the enterprises, and then and so forth and so forth. One other cool thing about the academy is it is 2.5 years, but you're not required to leave at that 2.5 year mark,
Mm-hmm.
which is a lot of places if the funding runs out and they say, all right, see ya, you're gone. But since we're not funded by the government and we're able to allow people to leave when best suits them. So for me, even though I might have been fine after my 2 year period, I wanted to give back to the house and I wanted to just continue riding the wave that I was riding. And so I committed to stay a third year. And I ended up getting more growth in my third year than I did in the first 2 years combined.
What did you learn about yourself?
Ooh, I was able to develop a lot of self-love for myself. That amongst many things. One thing to go back to my mother as well. My mother had a wonderful smile. It was great. A wonderful smile. And I had her smile. That was one of those things that it got commented to me all the time growing up. Oh, you have your mom's smile. You have your mom's smile. So when she passed away, it was something that my relatives, like my grandparents, would see me and be like, "Oh, it's so great to see you," because it would remind them of my mother, their daughter. But due to my bad decisions, a lot of substance abuse, my smile just started to deteriorate over time, and it started having the opposite effect with my relatives. They'd see me and it was like a double, like they'd be double sad, like it remind them of my mom but then also remind them of how their son's doing kind of at that time. And that was pretty shameful. I was pretty shameful about that. And when I got to the academy and I was able to do the process and start finding my worth, which is infinite and intrinsic and beyond. And once I kind of got to that point, I'd probably been here about a year when that happened. And I was okay with myself. I was happy with myself with not a great smile or not. I just loved me. And right around that time is when the academy told me that they were going to start helping me with my dental stuff. And I started getting that taken care of. And a little while later, I got my smile back. But the great thing is I was able to begin to love myself before that happened. And so now, even smile or not, like I love the person that I am. But I'm super grateful that the academy was able to do that for me.
You talk about on your little blog doing the hard things, right?
Yeah.
What
Oh
what
yeah.
what were the hard things?
Ooh, so for me, there's not a lot of hard things they ask us to do, but most of it's uncomfortable. It's a lot of uncomfortable things. So even just as I worked in our corporate development and I was making phone calls and doing things, there'd be moments where I just wouldn't want to maybe call somebody back. There'd be an uncomfortable conversation. I knew that was coming. And old me would have just either just ghosted that person or just probably just ghosted that person to tell you the truth and not deal with that. Now I'm put in a situation where I have to deal with this, and or at least that's what's expected of me. And so I started doing those hard things. And I guess to go along the lines of one of our founders, Joseph Grenny, he helped co-write Crucial Conversations. He has, I don't know if he's the one that told me about this quote, but it's, if you do hard things, you gain ability. When you gain ability, you're able to do even harder things. And when you're able to do even harder things, miracles happen. And that's something that resonated with me. And once I saw that I was able to do these harder things, I was like, all right, what else can I do? And before, like I said, I always just stopped when things got tough. And now being put in these situations where at least I felt like I had to do it, I was able to see my true potential.
Now you're a staff member. So what does the staff do with not everybody who begins finishes, I would think. You have to have some people who go, I'm out. So what does the staff say, or how do they intervene with people who get to that point of doing the hard things and they back off rather than push through?
Like students that want to leave,
Yeah.
and we deal with that on a daily basis. It's typically we just have to pull them aside and remind them how they felt when they sat in that initial interview that we did. Because when people sit in that initial interview, they're broken. They're scared. They don't know what to do. A lot of people don't have anywhere to go. I remember that feeling of sitting in our interview room and being like, what am I going to do if they don't accept me? But then after people had been there for a few weeks, that gratefulness starts to wear off a little bit. And so especially during that interview, I tell them, I'm like, I'm going to bring this up to you again in a few months
Yep.
when you're feeling like you want to go. One big thing is that gets people out the door is kids and family. Kids, and because they're not allowed to talk to their kids the whole time that they're here. Family is a slow process, but eventually they are able to talk to their siblings and people that raised them. But people want to go out to either maybe try to save other people, or they say they want to be there for their kids, but they had there's plenty of time that they may not have been locked up before here that they weren't using that time to be with their kids. One thing we always ask people when we're interviewing them or talking to them is, do you love your kids? And usually they always say, absolutely, absolutely, I love my kids. And one thing that our director will say to them a lot is, when I hate to see how you treat the people that you hate, if that's the way that you treat the people that you love. And so sometimes it's just reminding them that they really just need to work on themselves to just be. For me, it was I just wanted to be certain in myself. I didn't want to roll the dice with my life after this like I'd done so many times. And so I just tell people, I'm like, don't you want to go out and just actually be certain that you're going to be a good father, that you're going to be a good mother, instead of thinking that you might be okay now? Your kids are doing just fine without you, and you weren't being a parent even when you were there. So at least in my opinion, I feel like you can't be a drug addict and be a good parent.
I would think that the success rate for the people who complete the program is astounding.
And I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, and I don't know the exact numbers of other like 30,
Hmm.
60, 90-day programs, but I'm told that it's somewhere in the single digits with the 30, 60, 90-day programs a lot of the time. And when they've completed the program, stayed an extra year, and they've done a year in our graduate housing, typically, I believe our success rate, so it's 65% of our graduates are drug-free, crime-free, and employed. When somewhere in that range, like the 65% range, almost 70, I think.
And given the population who you work with, that's astounding.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think some people look at it and they think, oh, like a 60 something, that's like a D plus. But it's but then when you look at other places, it's really miraculous what we're able to do.
Yeah, I don't remember now too, but on your website, when you look at the history, your founder talks about the number of incarcerated days it saves, the amount of money that it saves the state as an alternative to incarceration, which is stunning.
Yeah, one thing that my dad always instilled in me, or at least tried his best to instill in me, like I still remember it now, is he always focused on being an asset rather than being a liability. And even like I had a lot of ups and downs in my life, and sometimes that I wasn't using and felt like I was doing pretty okay. But looking back, I was just bleh. I wasn't really aspiring to anything. I wasn't saving money. I wasn't being a true responsible adult. And I certainly was not being an asset to society. So one of my main focuses here is not just not be a liability, out there to society, but to try to be an asset and to try to give back. Because right now I'm still in the process of balancing the scales. That's a big thing for me, is trying to, because I hurt a lot of people. There's a lot there's a lot of people out there that especially now that I'm staff and not a student at the academy, I've been reaching back out to people. And I think there was a big part of me, especially being at the academy for so long, that assumed that I would graduate and people would be, hey, good, great job, wow, you're such a changed person, we want you in our lives. And that just isn't always the case. There's a lot of hurt that I did. And so I'm still in the process of balancing the scales. And that's one of those things to where I plan on doing that for quite a while.
That's a conversation maybe for another day or a whole new conversation. But you're right, Matt. If we have three people out there, one of them would welcome you with open arms.
Yeah.
Another would be skeptical and say, we'll meet for coffee, see what you have to offer. And the third one would say, get out of my life permanently, right? And
Oh, yeah.
you're not in control of any of that.
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope. And I don't blame any of them for whatever reactions they did have. It's absolutely fair. And I was able to just say, okay, I fully understand. And I hope you have a great life.
Yeah.
The ones that just were not willing to have me back in their life.
What was your dad?
No, my dad has always been really supportive, and he's been there. He's the one that probably should be the most hesitant to have me in my life. He'd retired and was just excited to just go on motorcycle rides with his friends. And here's his 30-something-year-old son that he's allowing to stay at his place with him for a little bit. And he did that a couple times until finally he had enough. But he didn't need that. And I was lying to him, stealing from
Sure.
him, just being just super manipulative. And he didn't have any of that coming. But he's been super supportive, and he's one of the people that, yeah, he's definitely just on my team to help.
For the faculty members who are graduates, how does that help when you're working with the students?
I think that's also one of the number one things that helps us work, because at least for me, if I was going to therapy and talking to somebody, I'm talking to somebody, and nothing against therapists, but I can manipulate a therapist easy. I'll tell them exactly what they want to hear and and that's not really helping me. But with our staff, all being graduates from the other side academy, they're able to see my BS. They live the same type of lifestyle that I've lived. And so it's one of those things for where when our students are trying to get one over on us and do something, we're able to call them out on it. And there's nothing that we're asking our students to do that we didn't do ourselves as staff or when we were students, in some way or form. And we're able to, yeah, it's hard to take direction from somebody that hasn't really walked in your shoes a lot. We have those people in the academy, like the Joseph Grenny, that no, he has not lived a life of crime, but he's a great example. But then we have the Dave DeRochers that they were wild, and were able to, that even though they didn't graduate from the other side academy, like he graduated from Delancey Street, it's very similar, and we're able to look at that as an example. And I think it's huge for the academy.
And now you have campuses in Utah, right? Two of them? Do you? And then one in Denver,
We have one in Utah,
one in
and then we
Utah.
have one in Denver.
Yeah.
And then the rumor is possibly a third one on the way, but that's just a rumor at this point.
I love, I think our listeners would like this too. Tell us about the bench.
The bench, okay, yeah. The bench is awesome. The bench is a portal from, we treat it as a portal from our old life to our new life. Right when you open the doors in our main campus, the bench is just sitting right there. And so I remember just sitting on the bench when I first got there, and we had a list. We have 12 beliefs that we have, and it was just framed up in front of me, and I was able to see what the toasted beliefs are made of. But cool thing about the bench is I was also able to see everybody around me and what was going on. And the first thing I noticed was how happy everybody was while I was sitting on the bench during that time period. But So the bench you sit on before you get accepted. It's also used for disciplinary reasons too. It's sat right next to the front door. So if people are thinking about leaving, a lot of times we just tell them like, hey, calm down a little bit, just sit on the bench before you think about doing anything dumb. Some people have 10, 20 years over their head and they want to walk out the door just do based off of a little emotion. And we'll just say, hey, just chill out, just sit on the bench. Other times people will, maybe they'll break the rules and we'll just tell them, hey, you got to go sit on the bench. With the process here, we're really strict and we don't want people to do it with a dirty conscience with things that they've been doing here at the academy that they're not supposed to do. So we have what's called like a cleanup process. So if I was only allowed 2 cups of coffee one day and I started making a habit to have 3 of them, it gets into my head that I can break the rule in this way. And then a little while later, I get to a crossroads with something and I already know, well, I already break the rule in this way, so why not this way? And it turns into the snowball effect of me breaking the rules. And next thing you know, I'm not calling other people out for things they're doing because who am I to do that? And so the house just and so I start getting what we call getting dirty in that sense. And we always tell our students, you can't do the process with a bunch of dirt on you. It just becomes a backpack full of rocks and the process just becomes harder. So one thing that we implore them to do a lot is to clean up. And so we'll tell them to sit on the bench and think about all this dirt you have on you and to just allow that baggage off of you. And that's just one of the cool things that they're able to do on the bench as well.
I'll let you go with this. You started this by talking about settling, being lazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Tell us something that you've accomplished that you would, looking back on your younger self, you would have went, no way am I going to do this. And yet you have.
Let's see. So I just bought a new car on Saturday, actually. It was the first time I bought a car responsibly by myself, I think probably ever. I bought it from the same dealership that I bought my last car at, but the last time I borrowed $100 from my girlfriend's dad, went in there, had a double-digit APR, and walked out with the only thing that they would give me, and then ended up getting that car repoed in 6 months. I got a fantastic deal. I saved a whole bunch of money that I was able to put down. I don't think I've ever saved money in my entire life. I'm doing these things that sadly it's one of those things that all adults should know how to do is just basic things. But I'm just proud of myself that I'm able to adult uh I'm able to make the hard choices even when I'm just sometimes don't want to do anything. I might just be sitting up in my room and I live up here on campus and I'll be sitting there thinking, am I just going to sit here and doom scroll or, just kind of lay here? Or should I go down and check in with the guys, see how they're
Mm.
doing? And now I'm able to make that decision and it's easy. And I'll go down to the floor and I'll talk to my guys. I'll check in on them, make sure they're doing good. And I'll get so fulfilled from doing that. It's really cool. But before it was just that lazy part of me just didn't want to do anything and I wouldn't excel. So now I'm able to see the benefits of when I put in that extra effort. It's awesome.
It is awesome. Matt, I so appreciate the time that you took to help us. We talked here, folks, about a lot of different programs, and I just wanted to shine a light on the Other Side Academy because they're doing some things with some really difficult populations that a lot of people shy away from. We just barely touched on some of the stuff that you all do. We'll leave your website at the blurb of the podcast in case you want more information. Thanks for sharing your story, Matt, your work. For those of you listening, watching, we hope that you're
Yes.
safe. We hope that you're well. And we hope that you also do the hard things.